Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dave Emmons Strange Reality Show. And I have some guests this afternoon. Well, it'll be this afternoon or evening or morning, whenever you get a chance to watch this program because it's pre-recorded and it says for your enjoyment at any time you want, and it'll be on a lot of different platforms. I was just thinking about the world and the way it's going now, and I listened to a song for what it's worth, Buffalo Springfield, and that's a good song for its time. And I listened to that just before I met up with Dr. Bob and Lala, uh, and I look at the world as we are really losing moral concepts. Most people are nowadays. That's because of what the government is doing uh, to us and not for us. They're not doing the proper things around the world. They're leading us into some kind of other new world order that we really don't want. And I can see this violence. It hurts me. It bothers me to know about the violence around. And I know Lala's an empath and the psychic, and I know it bothers her too. It's an external pressure on all of us. And a lot of people lose hope when that happens. We shouldn't do that. Uh, that's why I wrote this book. I just want to get this in angels and supernatural entities. And I can tell you for real, we do go to another dimension. And I think Lala, since she's an empath, she knows this. And then here's the book here about the ETs. And they're for real. They are for real. ETs are real. When we sleep, I've listened to a couple of scientists talking. When we sleep, we go to the fifth dimension for about 2 hours. And when we dream, we're actually in another dimension when we dream. And for some reason, we have to dream because our mind reloads itself, it replenishes itself. But some of the dreams I have also are saddening dreams, dreams that you see that's not very good. They turn out to be negative dreams, and you wake up and say, "Oh my God, I hope that doesn't happen to this world. I hope this doesn't happen." So that's the thing. But we all should pray, and also spirituality, get our consciousness up, and hopefully, like Dr. Bob and Lala probably be able to tell us a little bit about orbs and also supernatural things and the ETs. They have a lot of pictures they're going to show us, but I was excited having them back on because they're continuing their adventure. And it's just like me. I have little things happen to me all the time, and they remind me of the synchronicities, and also uh just materializing things in your mind and taking the concept of spirituality and other you know a lot of people say, well, do we go somewhere else? Yes, we do. Are there ETs? You darn right there's ETs. They're all over the place. They're right around you. You probably met them. So open your minds up to that. I know a lot of people are skeptics, and I like to tell skeptics that just keep your eyes to the sky, take a look at things, watch the news, watch the good news, watch actually the best show I think going on right now is Skinwalker Ranch. They
Oh,
have so
it's
much
amazing.
scientific, and I know Dr. Bob enjoys that because he's a scientific guy himself, but they do amazing work on scientific data, and they know what they're doing. My guest today on the Strange Reality Show here with Dave Emmons is Lola Bright and Dr. Bob McGwier. They're a UFO paranormal power couple who were thrown together by the phenomenon. She is a psychic medium and an experiencer, and she can tell you about the ETs and the ghostly matters. Bob is a scientist and engineer with internationally recognized credentials. They will speak and work together. It's a great combination. Person who's an empath and sees things, brings things in, and a scientist who's there to record it. Lala's earliest paranormal recollection is of her finding a neighbor's grave in a Baltimore cemetery with thousands of graves by hearing the deceased neighbor calling her. This was age 5. And a lot of people do start early age when they know they have these talents. That's about the right age. And she couldn't read at the time, but her father was a Reiki uh, practitioner, experiencer, and energy worker. Recognized her instantly. That travels in the family. I know that myself. It's in the family. She now speaks to the deceased for those who need it, She speaks to aliens for those who need it. She calls energy beings to her home daily and gets them to respond intelligently. Bob has outfitted, and Bob is a scientist. He went to school. He's got the sheepskin and everything else, and he's a scientist. And he outfitted their home with technology to enable Lala's abilities to be documented and shown to the world. They are truly a power couple bonded, and they're very interesting. Of course, I've had them on the show before, and that's why I've got them back. Close relationship. They now live together, and they're experiencing things together. And actually, I think Lala is pulling things in for Bob to take a look at, and also he's taking scientific data. And if he's a scientist, he's got to have that data before he believes anything. Yes, and there's been a lots of craft that they've been seeing, and so they've got pictures and some videos. I watched some of the pictures and videos, and they're really good. And I'm just excited to have them on because they're not telling stories that happened. They can tell stories that happened to them several years ago, but they're actually ongoing, and this is an ongoing work. And Dr. Bob McGwier and Lala Bright, we'll get ladies first. Lala, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I am a psychic medium, and I speak to all types of different beings. And now, because of Bob, it's kind of amped up a lot because you can always feel it, and it's nice, but it's validating to see what you're feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I get more confident, they come around more. And it's really been very interesting lately and it's just around the house. We don't have to go anywhere.
We
Right.
don't have to leave our home.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've had a portal open up in our backyard sky, and we have it on video for everybody to see. It's amazing. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yep.
I've taken pictures of little portals in my room, and I have a couple of pictures of those. They're dark holes, and it looks like a cloudy scene around it. And
Right.
it wasn't cigarette smoke. A lot of
Right.
people say that cigarette smoke in that room. No, I didn't smoke, and nobody else smoked in my house at that time. But Doctor Bob McGuire, you went to college, graduated, and working with the scientific stuff. So, could you explain a little bit of your background and how you're able to help Lala, with the facts?
Sure. My last degree was a doctorate in applied mathematics with concentrations in physics and computer science. I was really lucky at Brown University, so it's a really high quality graduate school in the Ivy League, and I got trained by a Nobel laureate in physics and one of the most famous people, two of the most famous people in all of computer science. So I was really well prepared to take that really materialistic view to the world, and I did solid work without even thinking about this stuff
Mhm.
except curiosity every now and again, watch a movie, documentary, whatever, YouTube, when that started happening. And then just did my work for many years. So I retired from working for the U.S. intelligence community and joined the faculty at Virginia Tech, where my job was to put together research projects that would show young people how much fun the technical work was if they went to work in support of the intelligence community or the Department of Defense or Advanced Research Projects Agency, etc. And they would leave school with money in their pocket and not a load of debt. That's
Mhm.
both undergraduate and graduate.
Right.
And we had a secure compartmented information facility. So it had both unclassified and classified components, and they got to get their security clearance, which uh, increased their offers by 30 to 50% over what every other graduate at the university was getting. So
Right.
that enabled them to leave with money in their pocket and make a good salary and go to work for the government. And
Right.
so we are very successful. The Hume Center became the largest funded research center at Virginia Tech, and now it's the National Security Institute at Virginia Tech, and it's very large. very powerful. It's by far the biggest research entity there. And when I no longer could know everybody in it and COVID hit and closed the university for a year, I retired. But
Yeah.
before that, I began hearing rumors inside the community about UFOs, and that stuff was really getting interesting. So I began doing a little study. I found Chris Bledsoe in several podcasts, and I went and visited him, and I saw massive orbs and flashing bulbs and purple auras and other things at his house. I had a hitchhiker follow me home. I personally experienced a miraculous healing. So before I went to Chris, I had 3 heart attacks, and I was okay, but I had 3 heart attacks. So I went over there, and I had a hitchhiker came home, and I knew it was related because I would occasionally see stuff in the sky, but also apports of water appeared in middle of the air as if an invisible being was shooting me with a water pistol. And I've said, okay, Chris, look, this is happening. I realize it's this hitchhiker that people have been talking about, and I'm willing to help you. And here's how I'm willing to help you. So the hitchhiker stuff stopped as soon as I committed, and I helped Chris Bledsoe put together his first major public address. And he delivered that at UFO Con in 2020. So a few months later, right before I retired, I went to the cardiologist I had where I worked in Blacksburg, Virginia. And the cardiologist told me that I had 100% capacity in my heart. He couldn't even find the damage from the heart attack.
Wow.
So that's a miraculous healing. And this is well known with Bledsoe.
Right.
So I just felt
yeah.
great. And then when I left Virginia Tech and went and bought a home, I began having experiences at home. White orbs, very bright in my living room, craft around my home, caught on my security camera. So that's when, near the end of my time in Alabama, my mother passed away. And Lala reached out to me. We were Facebook friends. We hadn't really interacted, but she reached out and said, I'll be happy to give you a reading when your mother passes. And within 3 weeks, my mother was gone. She did a reading for us, and she completely and totally convinced me that, given so many different things she said, that she was actually in contact with my mother. She said, there's a woman here, and the woman had selling a word, and she couldn't understand what she was saying, but she told me the word, and it was the nickname that I gave my grandmother. So she called me Sweetie, and I called her Tweety, and Tweety stuck forever. So she found that out of thin air. She saw the poodle my grandmother always had in her arms, who had passed. So animal spirits are also there, and her poodle Pierre was in her arms. So I just became totally convinced. So we began discussing all the aspects of her abilities, and it quickly became clear to me that the things she thought were really lucid dreams from the early in childhood going forward included all sorts of things. So she had all these memories, and I identified them as basically hidden memories that were leaking through of alien abductions. She's an abductee, a contactee, talks to spirit, sees UFOs, has missing time, just all this stuff. And so we began doing lots of investigating. We decided to do things together, and then fell in love, and now we live together.
Bingo. Great story. Hey, the Bledsoe story was on the after show of Skinwalker Ranch just the week.
Beyond Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, Beyond. And that was very interesting. He's able to call these orbs, and even in the woods, they're not flying so high, but also these orbs that are flying really fast, and they're making turns even sometimes. So they're not satellites. And of course, these scientists were checking these out to be scientists, and they had these devices on their computers to know where the satellites were at that time. So it was an interesting show. So you spent some time with Chris Bledsoe. That's great.
Yeah. We are like, I cannot be an objective scientist with Chris, so I don't try. Yeah. He and I are soul brothers. Yeah. We call each other brother all the time. We talk to each other a lot, many times a week. And I am the last major incident in his book, UFOs of God.
Wow. Yeah, I know he's a very interesting guy, and he can just draw them in. Apparently, he's been abducted, right? They didn't really.
Oh yeah. No, that was his first remembered alien craft where he scared the dickens out of his son and people that work for him because he was gone for 4 hours. He was abducted and shown the future.
Mhm. That's why the townspeople were making fun of him, laughing at him, right?
But his entire family are really conservative,
Yeah.
a Christian, and they thought he was being manipulated by the devil.
Oh, okay.
They
Yeah.
really isolated him and really, really hurt his feelings. And he hid.
He was also recently talked about on the podcast Lights Out. It's Lights Out podcast, and it says from the beginning till now, and it's really detailed. So that's a good thing to watch on YouTube if anybody's interested.
And if you watch the Beyond Skinwalker episode, they did some real science. They put a really, really fancy EEG instrument on his head. And when he has these experiences, he would point out the orbs, and they wouldn't tell him what was happening. He would just have these experiences and point out the orbs, and they would video the orbs and look at his brain waves, and they could detect really unusual things going on in his brain. So we have a spiritual side of our brain and a logical side of our brain.
Right.
His logical side turns off and his spiritual side takes over.
Of course,
they measured it.
Yeah, well, of course, women think us men don't have either logical sides. Really, in a way. But Dr. Bob, you mentioned a hitchhiker. Now, in ghost hunting, when they investigate, there's a spirit that will attach to a person and go home with them. Now, you're calling this a hitchhiker. Is this an ET hitchhiker?
It's whatever the thing is, the non-human intelligence that's visiting Chris visited me. But this one here has had an attachment. You should tell that story.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we get into that story, the attachment, Lala? Since Dr. Bob brought up one hitchhiking attachment, what could you tell us your experience with that?
Yeah, I've had a few in my life, but one lingered for quite a while because I didn't really realize what was going on. It started when my parents had a house built on land that was like a battlefield, and that's I'm down in my room and I see a little bright light open up on my bedroom wall, and it gets real long, and a shadow guy comes out of it, and then the light goes away. And for some reason, well, I know why. I didn't do anything about it. I actually went back to bed, and they do that to me for some reason. They kind of numb me. And so for years, if I had any type of like male friend over, romantic or friend, it didn't matter, bad things would happen. It would try to scare the person away. And it was very controlling and just clung on, and lots of bad things started happening in life. And eventually I went, what was it, to Deb
Shakti.
I had a regression, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she brought this thing up, and she said it is an attachment, because I woke up, I had a bad dream, and I woke up to something being intimate with me. So, and I felt everything, and nobody was in the house, and I shouldn't have been feeling this kind of stuff. And she brought that up too, and she said it is an attachment, and she helped me with that.
She broke the attachment.
Right. I've had some of those experiences too. And my mother, who's 95, she went through some medical problems in the last couple of weeks. And I've actually had some other hosts tell me to bring her on my show and let her talk about what's happened to her. And this is why I know it travels through the family. It's DNA connected. She can tell you some stories, just like you said, Lala. She's been, I guess, assaulted in bed. And while she's sleeping, and she sees these dark, tall figures walking through her hallway, and she's seen lots of different things. So I will get that interview of her, because I think that'd be pretty neat for her. And she's very, her acuity is, I guess, 10 times better than Biden's. She talks like a 49-year-old, and she's 95. Yeah, she's very, she can communicate very well. She can give you good answers. She knows what she's talking about. So I'm going to do an interview with her and maybe put that out. But yeah, it does travel in the family. But how did you find out, Lala, that this was an evil spirit, or was this an ET like Bob was talking about?
This was not a spirit. So people were leaning more towards alien, but they weren't really sure. So it was some type of being, but it wasn't a spirit. Um,
It was non-human.
but also I know it wasn't a spirit either, because when I sense spirits, I still get a little nervous because their energy is so much.
Right.
But with aliens, I get numb. Like
Mhm.
I call it alien Xanax. That's my joke, you know.
Well, I call it being dumbed down. They just
Yeah,
paralyze your whole body. And all
right.
you can do is look with your eyes. You can move your eyes, and that's about it. That's happened to me several times. And it happened to my cousin that was sitting with me. That happened to him too, along with me. So I know all about that part of it. But Dr. Bob and Lolly, you guys bring up a good topic here about what's the difference between ETs and ghostly spirits, poltergeist, and dimensional beings. Dr. Bob, could you shine some scientific opinion on that?
So to me, I think it's what people call, they are, people say dimension, I say frequency, energy. So every conscious entity has this kind of natural frequency. And so humans have a natural frequency. It's not the same as the ghost natural frequency. It's not the same as non-human intelligence natural frequency.
Mhm.
And this one over here, you wanted her to tell you more. That's my scientific way of talking about it. And each of these frequencies, because of the nature of reality, puts them in a different dimension. Their frequency is the code and key to get into their dimension. So they're all multidimensional and different frequency. But she knows a lot about this because
Right.
she senses it automatic.
I don't really know how to explain it, but I just know that, one time someone asked me a good question and they said, have you ever come across an alien ghost? And I haven't. But it made me think, do they ever die? Are they always living? Because they are they're a physical body, but then they can become a not physical body. This is one of the questions I'm trying to research, is what exactly are they?
Well,
Where, or,
yeah, in my book, Angels and Supernatural Entities, I have a spirit guides, and you know about spirit guides.
yeah.
They can be anything: your relative, your friend, your past person that you used to know.
Mhm.
Also they can be animals. But here's the kicker: that actually it can be another spirit from another planet in the universe that
Yeah.
comes and visits you. Because in dimensional travel, and Dr. Bob will attest to this, in dimensional travel, there is no time or there's no space. They can come through these dimensions, and they're there, right through the veil, and they're right there beside you. So they could be ghosts from another planet. Could you call them aliens or extraterrestrials? Extraterrestrials come in, they're all extraterrestrials, tell you the truth.
Right.
ETs, angels, dimensional entities. So they could be spirits from other life forms out in the universe that come and visit, because spirit guides can be just about anything.
That's interesting, actually. I
So
never
Yeah.
thought about that.
So she told you that Deb Shakti did her regression and told her lots of things about herself, and she's had other people that were sensitive. Like we went to UFO Con 2023, and a ton of people talked to her, and every one of them say, "Wow, you've got an army around you.
Mm-hmm.
Human spirits,
Mm-hmm.
multiple entities, aliens, non-human dimensional beings. She's just got an army around her."
Right.
And the next characterization of her is her third eye and her crown chakra beacon like a nuclear weapon was going off.
Yeah, really. I've had good luck with spirit guides, not so much with psychics, but with the spirit guides. They seem to be able to talk to other spirits, and I had one who hit 4 out of 5 things that she told me. Very phenomenal. I don't want to go on that, so this is not my story, but I'm just leading up to this, that they are and they can be from anywhere in the universe. These spirits they're coming here in a dimensional travel. Now, abductions. Have either one of you actually felt or been through an abduction? I know you talked about Mr. Bledsoe's place, and you had a hitchhiker, but Dr. Bob, do you feel that you were abducted anytime during that?
When I was 18 and left and went to college, my girlfriend and I were from the same town. We went to the same college. I picked her up on a Friday to bring her home, and we had an hour and a half of missing time. At the time, I had no clue. I was totally unfamiliar with this. I just knew something weird happened,
Right.
and we just thought we got lost. And later on, I realized it was missing time. And the other thing that was interesting is I went to college to be thing A. Within a couple of weeks, I said, I'm not doing thing A anymore. I left that major, left that college, went across the state, became a mathematician and an engineer, and totally stopped what I was doing after that missing time.
Mhm.
And she's had multiple abductions, including one here.
Right. Could you tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about those, Lala?
So the one here, that night, we got a video of an alien. You could see it was looking at the camera out front, and you could see its face and torso, and there's like smoke around it. And then that morning, I woke up with a huge triangle, really dark triangle bruise on my arm. And like I tell everybody, after my family passed, I became hyper aware of my body and health, and because of anxiety. And I would have known, I would have seen that in a second. And it didn't hurt. It was just weird. And before that, a couple years before that, I was driving, and well, my friend and I were parked getting coffee, and we kept seeing fireballs fly over the car. So, and they were getting a little close to the point where we got nervous, and we're like, we're going to go home. So we're driving on the road, and this huge cloud was over us, and a helicopter shone its spotlight in the cloud, and I saw a huge black metal craft. I mean, it was big, like a building big, a football field big. But I saw the underbelly of it, and I remember the detail of it, but I don't remember driving home. And this has happened when I've seen crafts before. I remember looking at it, but I don't remember anything after it. But I'll have dreams that I remember of being on a table and
Mhm.
being like them doing surgery on me, but using their hands and not equipment.
Mhm.
And they'll say, "Don't let her see," and then I'll wake up. So
Yeah, lucid regress dreams are actually better than hypnosis, I think,
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
hypnosis plants a seed. And when you are like, say, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning is when the bewitching hour happens usually,
mhm.
and you have these lucid dreams, and that's where I got I guess I saw about 5 or 6 different aliens and craft in my very lucid regress dreams, and I'd wake up and I say, okay, I need to write this down. And I thought to myself, no, it's burned into my memory. I already know it, and I can, that's how I did it. I just repeated it days and months and years, the same story, the same. I remember every little thing about it. So regress dreams are about the best. I want to switch now to Dr. Bob. I have a theory about why they abduct us. And I wrote the first book, What Do They Want? Well, from what I'm seeing, they're wanting to trace our frequencies. You mentioned frequencies a while ago. Everything's made up of frequencies. Our bodies are made up of frequencies. The ETs can track us. They don't need implants. The implants are actually to modify our DNA. There's carbon-based implants, in which I've had 2 of them, and there's a metallic implant in which controls frequency, and that frequency is sent through your nervous system, and it changes you, and it makes brain cells. So it's and they say that anytime you have something happen to you that's fantastic, that draws your adrenaline and you're scared, that actually makes brain cells. You get smarter from these, and it's just like jumping in a cold shower. That shock helps your brain cells grow. So neurons are just all over the place when that happens, and they expand. But Dr. Bob, there's three forms of abduction. Since we're talking about abduction, there's bedside abduction, in which where they'll come to your bedside, put you out, knock the other person out, your wife or spouse, knock them out completely. They're just after their target. They come in and they take maybe DNA samples, semen samples, and then they can read your frequencies just with their eyes. And they can read you, they can read your memory, they can record everything from you. And they're taking these other samples, DNA, because I've seen scrapes, I've seen holes, I've seen marks on other people and myself. Uh, the second form of abduction is when they take you to the craft. And if you have a lucid dream being on a craft, then that's what they did to you. They took you to the craft, and mostly women, because they're a little bit harder to extract, like eggs for for hybridization program. For men, it's a little bit easier to extract, but they need something more. I guess they have to take them to the ship to do these I guess internal type things. And Dr. Bob knows more about that than I would, uh, but the third type is what I've experienced. And I want to ask you two if you've experienced this. I've 6 years in a row. My doctor said, okay, you were cold. I was frozen, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was totally frozen. My whole body was frozen. I woke up shivering. The whole bed was shaking. And I'm not a big guy, and I make a lot of racket and I shake that bed. And my wife, who usually hears a cell phone hit the floor, just a little thud, she wakes up. She said, what's that? She did not wake up one time out of the 6 times, 6 years in a row, August 11th through August 14th. These are moments where I think what they do is they freeze you. They take your energy, your consciousness, and your spirit actually with them. They take you to another dimension, but I have no recollection. I have no regress dreams. That frozen part, when you're frozen, it seems like they're taking all your energy with them in order to take you to another dimension. They bring you back in time to where you don't croak. But I just got up to go to the bathroom, take a leak, and I come back. Dr. Bob, can you add to anything like that? That frozen part? What happens? Do you from
I'm
your?
going to tell you what I think are similar, given my readings of Edgar Casey and the other explorations that I've undertaken. But my experience of this is mostly through reading. Now, of the types you mentioned, she's had them all. Okay, so just I'll give you one, the most recent one with her, and it's one of the they knocked both of us out. I was out for a while. I slept 3 hours later than I ever sleep, and she woke up with the bruise she talked about on her arm. So, and they had injected her with something or took something from her. All right. So, but people that do astral projection, their body is like frozen in place and their spirit leaves their body. And so you can do this yourself. But if the aliens or non-human intelligences or spirits or whatever want you to go with them for education, instruction, etc., that's what happens is your body is left behind, your consciousness is taken in orb or spirit form, and whatever they want to do with you, they do. So right. When I was 3 years old, I woke up after I had interesting dreams in the middle of the night, and I went in where my mother was with her best friend having coffee like they regularly did a couple of times a week. And I walked over to the bookshelves. I grabbed a book and proved to them I could read. And so I had been miraculously taught how to read at many-year-old level with no instruction. Mm-hmm. And so my mother she had no explanation for it, but she thought it was a miracle. And being raised in a religious family, she just figured it was a miracle. And so I was really, really different until I was 10 years old. And at 10 years old, it really took off. Mm-hmm. So I was a technical wizard at age of 10. And I am instantly, through experiences and reading, but reading is not enough to explain all that I could do. I was a polymath at age 10. And then, so when I was 18, I thought I was going to be a medical doctor, and that's not whatever it is wanted me to do. So they abducted me for an hour and a half and changed me, instructed me, whatever, in a way that I was given no choice. It was an obsession that I had to change universities, change majors, and become the technical person I am today. Now, the thing she went through, as I told you, she has this bruise on her arm. And I later identified the bruise by taking a picture of the bruise and putting Google Lens on it and looking up pictures like it online. And it was the same bruise you get with one kind of hypodermic pneumatic injection shot. And it was just like, and you could see stuff had gone into her pores. And not only that, the most interesting aspect of it is it happened between like 3 o'clock in the morning when the entity was in front, and we woke up several hours later than we usually do, 10 o'clock in the morning. And I looked at the bruise and I said, she says, that wasn't there yesterday. I says, are you sure? She says, no. I says, well, And the reason I went, is it had discoloration like it had been there for a week. So when they take you, they can time travel you and then bring you back to wherever you are.
Right.
So I really believe that she was actually gone while I was asleep, and wherever she was, a week went by and they brought her back. She had no memory of it, but her bruise was now a week old.
Yeah. The way time is out there in different dimensions, you can be gone for 5 minutes here on Earth time, but in that dimensional time, you could be there several hours.
Or a lifetime.
A lifetime. Yeah.
Right.
A lot of people are having they're trying to think about the spiritual thing, and the consciousness is very strong nowadays. And I think we need to turn to that really. Lala, you talked about being abducted. And were you frozen also? Were you cold several times?
Yes. Not always, but there was one in particular where I was, and it was a little scary.
She's had every type you've named. She's woke in that dream she talked about being on the table. After they put her out, she woke up a little later. She was under the table holding 2 boys in her arms.
Yeah.
So she's been in part of the hybridization experiments, almost surely in my mind.
Right.
She has no memory of all of that, but that is a typical of a woman who's been through hybridization experiments.
Well, I remember years ago, maybe 10 or so years ago, I was looking up at the stars one night, and I said, just out loud, I said, where am I from? What? Because nowhere feels like home, And that night I had a dream, and it said M56. And at that time I had no idea about any of that. And M56, I woke up and Googled it, and it's about the Lyrans and the Palladians, and I didn't know about that stuff. So
and it's a globular cluster.
Yeah.
Which is 10,000 stars all in a blob.
That's how they talk to you. They talk to you in little riddles and little, dots and dashes, and they don't really come right out and tell you. It's all telepathic, of course. When they do, send that message to you, your third eye. And apparently, Lala, you have a strong third eye. But what I'm saying also is that they're looking for DNA. And I'm going to present this to Dr. Bob. This is a theory that I've come out with through my investigations and my research. And I want to pose this to you about DNA studies. Now, when they come to you, they know your frequency. They don't need implants to find you. They know your frequency. They have you tagged. And we might get into my lab too. I don't know if you can talk about that, Dr. Bob.
She's had them.
I mean, like military.
She's had them.
Intervention.
He can talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wanted to talk about this DNA thing. It's a theory that I've come out with and I've talked about on several shows, that when I met my ET, she come up to me and she said, we were supposed to meet. And I said, well, I don't know you. Do you know me? She goes, yes. Well, from what the scientists are saying, 80% of our DNA is junk DNA. That's what they're saying. And now they're changing their mind on that. There's been some new studies and scientific studies out of Oxford, I believe it was. They said, no, it's not junk. It's being used, or what they are is memories from past lives. And now I'm a stronger believer in past lives, and which Lala probably knows quite a bit about, since she's an empath and everything. But I think this 80% DNA is past lives. It's your bloodline all throughout your history. It could be human history through thousands and thousands of years. And the ETs know how to read that junk DNA. they don't know you. They don't know the 20% that represents you. Like this gal, I don't think she knew me personally, but what she knew was something about my 80% of DNA that has frequencies and stories for them to tell. Dr. Bob, what do you think about that theory?
So you brought up two things that it's really kind of interesting. So just let me launch into those two things for a minute.
Okay.
I founded a company. The company's called Hawkeye 360. And its job is to, from orbit, find things that are transmitting on the ground and geolocate them. And I invented a technique that needs very little power from coming from the thing on the ground. And you can easily find it from orbit to within a square meter. And so this is new. People have been geolocating things on the ground, but they had to have massive antennas and huge billion-dollar spacecraft. The thing that I invented and Hawkeye 360 implemented is now clusters of spacecraft that can geolocate practically any frequency to a meter or so. And so that lets me know that everything we thought was kind of goofy about the aliens being able to track you, I now know exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is what was the other thing you were talking about?
Junk DNA.
Junk DNA. Yes. So junk DNA. Yeah. So I worked. I'm not going to give details, but I worked for the government on how you could encode bits of information in someone's DNA. Not only that, Gary Nolan has started 11 companies and was nominated for the Nobel Prize. At the same time, the other people were for CRISPR-Cas9 because he developed a bunch of the techniques that ultimately led to CRISPR-Cas9 being invented, so you can transcribe and then change DNA if it needs modification because you have a genetic disease. So I know how to modify the DNA to put information in it. So you could encode information in those. They are information bearing codes in our DNA.
Yes.
So maybe our Akashic record is in the junk DNA.
Yeah. And the ETs can read all of that DNA. We can read our DNA now, right? Frequencies, our present DNA. Yeah. But I don't think they have the ability to go into all the DNA and all the junk.
They have with the mapping tools we have, we can map all of our DNA. We don't know what a lot of it does.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. But that mapping, you're doing it through DNA frequencies, Dr. Bob?
You're not, you're transcribing the actual base pairs. So the base pairs are, but the arrangement of the large molecules with these base pairs in them, they're different foldings, and the foldings will determine the resonant frequency of the DNA. So you can have a different folding, you have a different frequency.
Okay.
So some of the stuff that Rick Doty talks about, that's going to be really shocking to people when it comes out. So this assuming that David Grush is telling us the truth and Rick Doty's telling us the truth. But if both of them are telling us the truth, the beings that crashed in Roswell that they called EVA, extra biological entity, their DNA is 80+% matched to ours.
Really?
Even though they're from a different planet. Now, the other thing I want you to realize is if a planet has a random process that brings together DNA to make a being, the likelihood that a being from here and a being from over here on a different planet will both have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and a mouth. All of them exactly the same basic structure. The probability that is like 1 over infinity. It's like 0. And now we're talking about many races of humanoid looking entities where basically it's 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, a mouth, 2 ears, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 feet, 2 hands. The hands and all feet and hands and all these things can look different, but it's all the same basic structure. That means to me, there's a plan. Some ancient thing made a plan, and each one of these things is like a different experiment.
Right. Like they've been finding out that now the universe is older than what they thought. It's not 13.5 billion years old. It's 24 billion years old.
Right.
And
There's some controversy, but I believe it's a lot older than they think it is. And Roger Penrose has come up with a theoretical method that says we could have been around for infinity, and we go through these cycles where it's one universe and then we go through a cycle, a new universe, and we can find remnants of the old universe before the Big Bang or however it started ours that are still present in ours. A shadow of the previous one is in our universe, in the cosmic microwave background and other things.
right. Yeah, I've heard so many theories and so many opinions on that. I just I know that they track us by the frequencies. That's how they get to you, because they found me in Alaska and they found me in Illinois, wherever I went, Sedona. So they know where you're at. They don't need the implants. Like I said, the implants are made to modify DNA or modify your frequencies in your DNA with the metallic ones. Even Daryl Sims thought of it that way. Rick Doty, I've always been wanting to talk to him, but he knows too many secrets. I think he can't talk a whole lot.
That's just that. I'm going to tell you what, I was just like you, and I thought he was a liar. But I recently began wondering, well, if David Grush is telling the truth, then a lot of the things that Rick Doty's been saying are possibly true. So I started looking
yeah,
at his interviews on Gaia
yeah.
with what's his name, Smith, and he tells everything. I mean,
did,
he
yeah.
has been in this game since forever, read into everything that's happened since Roswell forward until he retired in the late 1990s.
Wasn't calling Rick Doty a liar. What I'm saying is he knows secrets that the government don't want him to let out.
But he has shown proof positive that he had a non-disclosure agreement that lasted 25 years and it's expired. Smith, and he showed the redacted document on air, and he had a 25-year non-disclosure agreement, and that's the reason he's now talking.
Okay. I know the audience out there they're always curious about what the crafts look like, the ships that these ETs have, and also what the ETs look like. Lala, can you tell us what some of the ETs that you've seen, what they look like?
Some of them look like what I've seen, normal, almost Asian faces, and very narrow. The eye with same two eyes, mouth, little, almost no nose. Some of them look like creatures, which is new to me. I didn't know that. I thought they always looked like, gray aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had experience where they looked like tall white people, but really, really tall.
Right.
Um, those are the ones that I remember experiencing. So, but I honestly thought there were only maybe one or two, but I didn't realize how many. There's been a bunch that have visited us that don't look like humans at all, or have features. I mean,
But they shapeshift. They will
right?
change. They will change their looks. Yeah.
And they can hide really well.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
I meet a lot of strange people on the internet. I know you two also do, Dr. Bob. You might meet people, and just like you said, most of them that I'm running into are Asian persuasion. They seem to want to know you, get to know what you're talking about, and I don't have time to chat all evening long on a text. Dr. Bob knows where I'm coming from. He's probably near my age. You just don't want to. You don't mind having a good conversation on Skype or Zoom with somebody, but to sit there and chat on text all evening, that is so time consuming. I tell these people, I said, no. I said, if you have some interesting stuff you want to talk about, let's do a Skype or a Zoom. But they're walking amongst us, like Dr. David Jacobs said. They're amongst us, and like you said, the human.
So does Rick Doty.
Yeah,
they're walking amongst us, according to him.
And how many has he met?
He believes that officially on the Earth there's a bunch we know are in the cosmos and in the galaxy, but on Earth there's 5 or 6 that he knows of, and they're like reptilians, tall white Nordics,
Right.
the tall grays, the short
I
grays,
forgot
the
about the
the
reptilians.
mantids, and she's seen one that looks feline with cat eyes.
I
Yeah.
forgot about the reptilian. That I didn't know it was a reptilian. I just knew it had scaly skin. It was very big and muscular.
Yeah.
And I described it to him.
I mean,
And-
when she started talking about its sexual escapades and the scaly skin, I mean, I said, "Oh, that's a reptilian," and you can go read about 100 different people that have met the reptilians.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
And
I
Rick
just-
Doty didn't have much good to say about him. He was repelled by their activities on Earth.
Right. And they're using us. They're using
Yeah.
us. There's 4 actually ET races that are working with the military. I was going to talk about somebody told me here a while back I had these little holes in my legs, a bunch of them. And I woke up one morning before I went to bed, about 12:30, sitting side of a bed. I got real dizzy, and the room was just really going around and around. It had nothing to do with my health. My heart was fine. I felt okay. It's just my head felt like it was getting hit with something. And that night, I had all these little holes put in my leg, and they looked like a pattern, 3 lines. And I thought to myself, what could have happened there? And I heard, and then somebody told me it's not Rick Doty. It was somebody else in his little field of study that said that my labs, military labs, these people, they have already back engineered the way ETs abduct people. They know how to do it. They also have invisibility qualities. Our people, our humans, our special ops, whatever. I hate to talk about that because I can't prove it. Sure, I can't prove it, but I can talk about what other people have told me, and it could be our own people coming in and doing these things. And it's just like cattle mutilations. My theory on that is that the ETs are taking DNA, they're taking it from the lips, the anus, and the genitals, and that's where the rich DNA is at. They take that with them to another universe or to another galaxy where there's humans, and they breed cattle. They hybrid cattle and for them to eat. So if they're humans like us, they're going to need that protein or they're going to eat that protein. So that's my theory that they're feeding other humans out there, and there's millions of races of humans out in the universes. I guess after seeing these ETs, Lala, has any of them hurt you? Have you ever really been, feared, afraid for your life?
The only time I was really scared is when I woke up with something having sex with me. That scared me. To the point where I did not share it with anyone for many years because I didn't know what was going on, and 2, I was afraid it was going to happen again if I said anything.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I opened up to him, but usually, like I said, I'm very numb or dumbed down. It's no feeling at all,
Right.
which is weird because I have anxiety all the time anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so now they use and the things I've experienced, it should have scared me. It really should have.
I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay. By the time we get into those pictures, because you guys got some great pictures,
Yep.
great experiences.
Okay. So you should be able to see that. Let me make it a little
I see
bigger.
it. Yeah.
So she's taking pictures and she just gets these feelings. And she points the camera up and goes click and the flash goes off. And this is in the picture. There's no fog, no smoke. We don't smoke. There's no smoke around us. And these is in the picture. So she realizes, and some of these, we have lots of these. And all of them, to one extent or another, there's a face. But when they wanted to interact with us, she grabbed the camera one night and took a picture right in front of us. And 6 feet away from us was that.
That was 6 feet away.
6 feet away from us,
Wow.
right in front of us. And the next day they talked to her in English or telepathically or whatever.
Yeah, they used to. We'd get audio of these deep sounds and language that we just don't know.
Mhm.
and or it would sound like frequency sounds, like radios changing station. And finally I said, look, I want to understand you, but I need help. I just don't know what you're saying. And so finally one day we got a video and audio of a orb going by, and it said hi.
So it was a big streak orb that just made a U right in front of our camera.
Yep.
And at the bottom of the U, the orb went, hi, and it just kept going.
Really?
And then, oh yeah, and then yesterday, day before yesterday, we got an orb that streaked across the front of the camera, bright and in the daylight.
Yeah.
And it had an electromagnetic pulse I heard popping in the microphone as it went by.
Now, Dr. Bob, am I seeing two eyes here?
You
and
are right
and a
there is an
nose?
eye. There
Yeah.
is an eye. There's the nose.
Yes,
There's the
the
mouth.
mouth.
And right there is the edge of its bulbous head. That's
Right.
like a big gray or
Right.
Arcturian
That's
or
what it looks,
whatever.
yeah, that's what it looks like.
And this right here, she's pointing to the ground. So this is not the sky. That's not a star. That's an orb. And if you'll look right there behind that orb, there's another face.
Yeah.
There are several faces embedded in here. If you study them for a while, all but this one is distorted. There's a little face right there distorted, but this one is as clear as it can be.
Right.
That's a face.
And here's the challenge. Most ghost investigators would say that's a ghost. And
That's not a
and then-
ghost.
yeah, and it looks like an ET to me. Just
I
like
believe I
yeah.
believe it's an Arcturian because of kind of the message.
Yeah. Now, what did you get when they said the message? What did you gain from it, Lala, when they told you?
That we need to work together better and quit butting heads, because it's not about what we find or who's right or wrong. What they're trying to have us do is help with a soft disclosure. They want to help all of us, but
Mhm.
we need to help them as well. I don't exactly know what yet, but they do baby steps with me. So it's a peaceful interaction. But it takes time to figure out what avenue we have to go down to.
And so
Right.
what I think they want us to do is use other people like Jimmy Blanchett and my own abilities and her abilities, etc., to build a translation device that will enable them to do what we can do on the ground and they do what they can in the air. And we can establish a two-way communication system.
Right.
And if all these predictions from other experiencers are right, we got 4 years because they're
Yeah.
going to be here in 2027.
Yeah. Dr. Bob, do you believe that's a holograph?
I think the smokes are, remember, there's people call them Zendras and
Yeah.
other people call them portals.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, the smoke is covering up the entrance on our end of where they are coming from. The
Okay.
entity that was in the front that did the abduction, it came through a blob of the smoke. The smoke is clear in the picture of it. And then we have these other smoke. We get these smoke pictures all the time. And they're keeping an eye on us, sending us messages. But this was stop doubting yourself, quit worrying about proof. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up now and get on with it because we're here. And they showed themselves to us. And the next day they talked to her and told her, get on with your work because we need you to do soft disclosure and get on with developing other things that humans are going to need because we're going to help you because later on we're going to need you to help us.
Yeah. And if you're a real impatient person, you're not going to have patience for ETs. That's for sure. Because
Yeah.
they only work when they want to, or want to show themselves to you
Oh, yeah.
when they want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so let me go on to some other things here. I'm going to
Yeah.
stop
You
sharing
guys
and
got
share,
some, yeah, you
share
guys,
something. Let me share something different.
yeah, you got some great pictures and things that it's just amazing.
Yeah, and we thank you. So one of the earliest things we saw was this stuff here, which I'm going to start and then we'll go through it. Let me bring the Zoom back up. Let's share the screen. There this is. Okay. All right. So we'll let Lala tell the story because it's mostly her story.
Okay.
The darker photo on the left is our photo. We were out in the field with friends and they were all him and other people taking pictures, and I said to the sky, I said, please show your true self. And that's a picture that we got of the grid. And you can see, okay, so there's 4 portals, in my opinion, portals. 2 are light, 2 are dark, and out of the one dark one on the
I'll
left,
show you what's coming through the dark one
there's
on the left.
something
Yeah.
coming
I'll
through.
show it to you in just a minute.
And
Okay.
so on the right is someone wrote into us when they saw it and said, we got the same or similar thing years ago, and we didn't know what it was.
So it looks like it's the same kind of grid pattern, but
These are actual pictures, right?
these are actual pictures. The left one over
Wow.
here is taken with her iPhone 11.
And
Wow.
look, the little dots around it are actually the stars in the sky. We just made it darker so you could see
They
better.
sent some kind of pictures, and this one came from a woman in Michigan. But look at this being down here: 1 eye, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, an arm with something in its hand. There's 2 eyes, 1 eye, 2 eyes, a head, what looks like a little beard, a mouth, and an arm, and that's something in its hand. I mean, this is like, wow. Okay, so then Lala noticed that over here, this is something. So I decided to process it. So let me do that. Let me show you what was in it after I processed it. Okay, this is another picture taken with a totally different camera out in the field, and you can see that grid pattern.
Different area.
Different area, different place, different camera.
Yeah.
And then we see all these orbs and that grid pattern on the sky. Let
You
me
know-
show you the next one.
Yeah,
So
I got
back-
a picture. I got a picture just like that in my. I got in my office here about 2 or 3 months ago.
Well,
with
this
kind of a
this thing
grid.
is showing up all over the place, and I guarantee you somebody's trying to tell us something. Okay,
Is that a
Then
portal? Is it-
I think it's a portal. I
Yeah.
think it's a residue of a portal showing up on our cameras. But the picture she took with the iPhone 11, when the 2 of us and her friends were out, I zoomed in on that hole. Let me make this bigger. So in that hole, a craft is coming through.
Mhm.
Oh wow. Oh,
That's a portal, and it's getting a craft coming to quote our dimension.
okay. How large do you think that portal is, Doctor?
It's
God.
it's huge. It's
Okay.
it's huge. And I don't think size matters.
It took up the whole sky.
It took up the whole sky, but I don't think size matters. I think size is whatever they want it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, people regularly talk about, and Doty talks about, and other people talk about all over ufology, looking like something on the outside and going inside and being as big as the Empire State Building.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing though?
Those
But
are
look at
amazing.
that picture.
Yeah,
Look at
those
that
are-
picture. We
yeah.
didn't even notice this until months later. She says, there's something in that picture. So I zoomed in and enhanced it. And that is a craft coming through a portal.
That's amazing, guys. I mean, you would think that these are hand drawn, like schematics or whatever.
I guarantee.
But they're not.
As
Yeah.
God is our witness.
Yes.
She took her iPhone
Yeah.
11
Yeah.
and went click, and that was on it.
And neither one of you are artists, are you?
No. Well, she is.
I am.
She is, but she didn't draw it.
I'm
Yeah.
a face painter.
No,
That
she
doesn't-
can do a whole lot more than face painting. She's an artist.
That doesn't look like an idea that somebody would come up with right off.
No, so let me
Right.
do the last of it, and then we can just go back to chatting.
Well, if you got other photos,
Oh yeah, I want to show you some stuff.
yeah, show
Okay,
us.
so
Let's go ahead and show us.
here's craft, and we really like this one.
Yeah.
Even
She
if you-
loves this one, so I got to share it before we run out of time.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
well,
Let me get this and
Yeah,
share.
just show us those pictures. I love
We're
it.
doing it.
Yeah, there we go.
So this is our cameras that triggered on a flash in the sky, and she found the frame that had a craft in it, and that was it, with that cross in the sky.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
number one. And number two, what was it? 2 weeks later, the
Mhm.
same craft,
Yeah.
same craft like a cross. This is
It
wild.
makes
Dave.
me wonder
Yeah.
if maybe religion started because somebody saw that in the sky,
Well, didn't one of these ancient warriors, what was it, back in I guess 100 200 AD, they saw a cross in the sky. I'm trying to think of the warrior king, his name, and
I don't remember.
and then he turned religious after that. and then I think there was a Roman army or something.
Oh, you're talking about Emperor
Constantine.
no. Yeah, Emperor Constantine. You're
Yeah,
talking about Emperor Constantine, and
yeah,
he put together the Nicene Council,
right.
and they decided together what would be in the Bible.
Yeah, and
And
that's
his
what we saw.
mother went to Jerusalem
Mhm.
in like 300 AD or thereabouts, and brought back wood that she said came from the cross.
But he saw a
And
cross in the sky during a battle, and
yep,
he
Oh,
won the
wow.
battle because he was reinforced with this energy, and
yep,
that's why he went to the cross of Christ, and he went to Nicene in 325. Yeah,
yep. Let me go to the next one. So this is another one, and this one's interesting because I'm going to note it. Let me look at this like a scientist. This is the craft found the same way. She sees a flash in the sky, zooms in on it, does a little bit of tweaking so you can see it more easily, and then I look at it. This thing is illuminated. It's the middle of the night, and the sun is way below the horizon. For it to be illuminated, it's got to be up in orbit.
hmm
And so, how do I know it's in orbit? The sun is over here, and right down here, that part's in shadow because the sun's up here and illuminating it from up here.
right.
So, all these parts that are in shadow, they're facing away from the sun. So, this craft is illuminated almost in orbit.
Wow.
And that's many pixels. I mean, you can see the individual pixels.
And it
So,
came back a few nights.
so it's at
later.
least 40 by 40 pixels.
Wow.
So, let me go on to the next one.
Yeah.
And here's another one, same kind of deal. You see shadowing and light and so forth, and it's just one of these weird craft.
Yeah.
And this one is a daylight craft.
Mhm.
And we see this, you can see this aura around it, which is some kind of energy shield.
That's
And
what moves them through space and time. That energy shield.
yeah, and if you look above it and below it, there's little round balls. And months ago, a different craft that looked like a rib cage kind of had that same ball of light attached to like a metal arm. So this is a common thing for larger crafts. I just don't know what it is, but it's very interesting.
And not only that, you can tell this is daylight and color because this end has a purple aura.
It's yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
looks
so
like a
let's see.
saucer shaped craft,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Mhm.
And it's got some kind of energy field around it with a
Right.
protuberance right here and right here. Okay, here's another one of these craft, and you can see this side is illuminated, and this side is in dark. So that thing is all the way up in orbit. And okay, this one was a few days ago, and there is one frame out of this video that this thing zooms across, and that's in the daylight. It's late in the afternoon, but that's still in daylight because all this is in color. It's not IR and no IR. We don't use IR LEDs anymore. So this thing was bright, and as it zipped across, we can clearly hear a pop on the video. So there's some electromagnetic field around this thing as it zips by. We can
That's right.
hear the pop as it goes by.
Looks like a giant orb that's leaving the frame.
Yep,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, it's just really weird. Okay, let's move to the next one. Oh, I've got to go the other way.
Different folder.
Let's go to a different folder. I'm going to stop sharing and go to a different folder.
Okay. I know you sent me several pictures, very fascinating, and once you blow them up and you can see, and then you narrate what's going on with it, you can actually see it. And sometimes people need that, that direction or that guidance on these pictures in order to really see. Because I've run into most people who will look at things like that and they can't make it out.
Okay, well this one's not hard to make out.
Yeah, but
Hang
but
on, let me do this because it's not hard to make out.
their consciousness is not strong enough to visualize, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so you can see some detail in this. So she just found out she was taking pictures, and our other surveillance cameras were capturing these pictures. And it would again be her flash would go off, and we would see this object, and something right here reflects the flash back at us. So let's keep going. So we got one in the front of the house, over the top of the neighbor's house. So I'm giving you context because we zoomed in so you can see it.
Okay.
Look at the definition in this craft. There's nothing that's really badly out of focus. And you can see all this detail on it. This thing was flying from this side to this side over the top of our neighbor's house. And we got this in one of the frames.
And there's always a cylinder type
Oh, yeah.
item inside in these craft.
But you can see, and so I'm going to go over that again. I'm going to explain
I
it
see
to
the
you
cross.
technically.
I see the cross and I see a cylinder. Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So this is it's more distorted further away, but anyway, it's the same kind of thing. And here it again. This is like the same kind of crap, but it looks a little bit distorted, and I'm going to go over that. And here again, yet again, and same kind of deal, craft out here with a reflection. And I'm going to go tell you what that is now while I go back to my
When
favorite.
you're done, I want to say something about this.
Yep. Yeah, she has lots to say, but just let me tell you why they look like they do. That warp field will bend light because it has a gravitationally modified field, and the light is bending around the craft. And that's what happens when these craft in the sky look like they're shape shifting.
Yes.
They're bending the light that's going around. Now you go ahead and tell these are all Lala's work. She found every one of these.
So, like you said, when I would take pictures and a flash would go off, I would catch this little metal. It would look just like a metal thing at first. And I would take other pictures right after. And you would see something fly away if it were a plane or whatever, but this thing would just disappear. And it kept happening every night. And so I didn't go for a couple nights outside. I was just tired. I didn't feel like doing it. And I got a feeling, like an overwhelming feeling, to look at the video of
Mhm.
outside one night. And I looked, and this thing flashed at me to get my attention and called me to it. That was interesting. I've never had that happen exactly before. So it it knows, it's aware, and it's playing back. It's
Right.
interesting.
Okay, let me go to the last folder in case the
Okay.
last stuff, because this is also
Now,
quite
these are
interesting.
all in close proximity to your house, right?
Oh, yes, yes. Every one of these, they're right outside the house.
I just go on the back porch.
Yeah.
Literally.
Okay, so yeah, let me open this one and we'll just go through them one at a time.
And it's up in the stars. That's where they are.
Okay, let me share this.
They seem to like you, Lala.
They do. And here's one. So right here, that's an orb.
Yeah.
And you can see it go down the front of her when this is on Dave Scott's Spaced Out Radio. And here it is again, but it's moved further down her chest. And it started up here and just went down her chest.
Right.
So I went, that's wild. That's an orb. So we began having other people tell us, when you're on video, lots of time there's an orb. So we just started looking. Well, this is an orb that's in our house. That's our living room, and right the lighted door on the left is our bedroom. She catches this stuff in the house all the time. Here's an orb that has a face in it out back of our house. So let's zoom in where you can see the face really clearly.
Okay, I see it. Yeah.
And it's some kind of alien like the one we already showed you.
It looks like reptilian with the eyes.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's not human. And
Right.
so here's a one that's when I was on a
That was
podcast.
cool.
And so it went on around in the video, it just goes around here and goes off.
And covers his face.
Yeah,
also.
and one, but I only did, this is the last one of these.
Dr.
That's all I
Bob,
did.
scientifically, there's different orbs. There's a bright white orb like you showed, and then there's another one that looks like it's got face in it, and it's not solid.
That's a spirit
different-
orb of some kind of entity.
What's the difference between the two?
I'm going to tell you, so we started getting all these orb pictures, and pretty soon we got invited by Grant Cameron to go into this orb group he calls orbology.
Right.
And we later found out because he didn't tell us, we invited us in there. So he was on Jimmy Church and said, I saw that Bob McGwier and Lala were living together and they got to take pictures of orbs. And I could say, oh, finally, a scientist is helping a person take pictures of orbs. Let's do it. So he started this orbology group and invited all these people from all over the world into this group. And all of them are taking pictures of orbs, and we talk about it. And we were together for 30 days in the beginning. At the end of 30 days, Dave, the group had amassed 1 million pieces of evidence, video and picture of orbs. A
Really?
million individual pieces of evidence of orbs
Mhm.
from the group of people Grant Cameron brought together on a whim because he knew the two of us were together. And now the group talks all the time and shares stuff all the time. And I have now jumped into the physics of consciousness and how they manifest in orbs.
There's two, I guess, opinions on this too. Like if you talk to a ghost hunter, they're going to say those orbs are ghosts, and then if you talk to an ET, experiencer, they're going to say those are ETs. With those are kind of like little drones that they're watching you and monitoring you. Is that what you think, Dr. Bob?
I believe whatever it is, that orb is the seat, the hidden seat of our consciousness, whether it's human or alien, or dog, or not, or Arcturian or Pleiadian or whatever. That orb is the seat of our consciousness, and that is the thing from which we come when we enter the spacesuit we call a human body.
Right. Mm-hmm. Or meat suit, what some
Meat suit, whatever you call it.
Mhm.
Debs likes to call it spacesuit because she doesn't like the word meat suit.
yeah, it's kind of, yeah.
And Dave, look, I know you know this already. I understand, and it's not us bragging because we're like shocked. This is a small piece of our evidence.
Yeah, I know. I've
This,
seen a lot more.
we call thousands of pieces of evidence that we can identify almost all of it, but we take the best ones we've got of kind of each individual thing and put them in that folder that we have shared on Facebook.
Right.
And we have cryptids, we have orbs, we have craft, we have beings. It's just amazing all the stuff.
What cryptids have you seen?
Skyfish,
Okay.
rods.
Okay, so just let me describe it. I should have brought it up, but I will. But we were out in this field, and we decided to take pictures. So I'm looking up, and I says, "I see something flying through the sky that's glowing." So she takes her camera, aims it at the sky, and goes click. And in it, there are these four things that look like long eels that are maybe swimming through the atmosphere like fish, and they're multicolored and glowing.
Wow.
So I went over to this side of the truck and I went click and I got one.
Huh.
And so it's just, and they are some kind of being. And the best description for this kind of some kind of being that we don't, that's not humanoid, is cryptid.
Yeah.
There's one that looks like I call it napkin. It literally looks just like this square thing that can go flat or go like this, and it can go through walls. It's amazing. It's real. I haven't seen it in a while, but it was around for a few months actually.
Now
Yep.
let's
But
let's talk
as I
about
said,
the
these are these to us. We don't know. There's some kind of being. We can't name them at all, so we're just calling them cryptids.
let's talk about that invisibility. I know that ETs can be invisible because they've been in my house, and I've held up my tri-field meter, and I got in the center of the room. I got the ambient reading, so I got away from the outlets and things of that nature. And Bob, you being a scientist would know that you need to take ambient readings before you start. But the pegs were jumping out on this tri-field meter on magnetism, and I knew it was right in the room with me in the middle of the room. And at that time, my camera has caught, many pictures, of these ETs in my house. It was the Michelin man with the concentric rings around its white suit, and I saw reptilian in the face of, right in my lens. And then there was another bright entity that I saw with a long string of energy. It was about 7 feet tall. It was tall. It was materializing. I think when it comes in, it was, I guess, have you seen that, Lala? That anything that come in your house and materialize in a bright white light?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've had that on a few. I mean, it's happened throughout my life since I was little.
Yeah.
And they're as bright as the sun almost.
Yeah.
And they have sometimes it looks like, well, I have a video of one. It looks like it's swirling inside. So it's protected on the outside, but it's swirling on the inside.
Yeah.
And it goes forward and then it goes back and it goes into the wall.
Mhm.
and that was a being.
So this is a picture of that you can find many of them on the web when you Google Arcturian and click on the image. I believe this blue thing and that blue smoke is what we saw.
And in the
These are
front
Arcturians.
yard too.
Right.
Front
Yeah.
yard but the front yard was black and white. But her she with a color camera, she got that blue thing in the backyard. I think they're Arcturians.
It's same. They looks like it looks like the skulls, the elongated skulls that they found in South Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, not Africa, but South America
Yeah.
and Central America. Yeah, it looks like the same type of skull. Yeah.
But these are pictures that you can find on the internet by Googling
Right.
Arcturian and clicking on images, and there's hundreds of them.
Right. Right. Well,
Yeah, so we just see that these things in and around us all the time.
Yeah, like we said, they do hide, but when you find them, it's almost like they get excited, and more of them come around, and new ones come around, different types come around,
they
and then
know
when you find them, it goes
uh,
on and on.
they know you're accepting them because you're
But when you're no longer afraid and
right.
you want them to show up, they show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the reptilians, we've heard pros and cons. Some are good, some are bad.
Mhm.
But have you ever had an experience directly with a mean reptilian, Lala or Bob?
I have not.
Not mean, just
Scary, right?
scary.
They're
Yeah.
scary looking. I saw one.
Mhm.
Actually, it was I think it was a lady, a reptilian young one, about 5'7", 5'8", and I saw it briefly for about 5, 6 seconds. When I woke up, looked at it, and it scared the hell out of me. It looked like a cobra in the face, and I thought, oh
Right.
my god, a snake. I jumped out of that bed and I went to the wall and I looked and it was gone. It disappeared. It only showed itself for about 6, 7 seconds
Yep.
because they only do that because they know you're afraid of them. We're not. They do not look like the other humanoid, like Dr. Bob was talking about. Most of the humanoid looking. These look a little bit different, a little bit more scarier, and from what all indications, they actually eat people. So
Oh my God.
yeah, that's they're the underground, the ones that
Mhm.
the people are that are missing. They sometimes say, well, that could be the reptilians that live underground.
Okay.
Yeah, so
But
that's
don't you have a guardian that's a reptilian?
Yeah, it got described. It looks reptilian, but there's I've heard there's different types of
yes, there is.
reptilians.
There
Yeah.
is. I heard somebody say there's three different types.
Right.
One's not as big as the others, but
Mhm.
the large one is supposed to be really creepy looking. And the one I saw looked like they still look like a cobra in the face from what from what I saw. But I saw also a lovely young lady about 25 years of age in a nightclub, and I was going there to sign a musical contract. And she was setting. Well, she actually first of all she come up to me and she motioned for me. She was a dancer, and she was with other young ladies, and they were very pretty young ladies. And she was dancing in a dress, and she come over to me with her hands going like this, like "Come hither." And I had my other two brothers with me, younger and better looking than me, but she was coming towards me, and I guess she must have knew that I was some kind of a hybrid from my DNA or whatever from being messed with ETs.
Right.
She recognized me, and so then a week later ran into her. I didn't go over to her and talk to her. I didn't hit her. She was too young for me. I just it was just I was scared actually because I felt the energy from her. And then a week or so later, we were there sitting at the bar, brother and I, and she was there again this time, but in a tank top and jeans, and she didn't even look at me. She just rolled her eye to me. And she had a slit in her eye, a green lizard slit, and I
Mhm.
thought, oh my God, that's why she come up to me, and she was a shapeshifter, and they're
Mhm.
walking amongst us. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I can tell you. That's been my experience with what I think she was a nice reptilian probably. Uh but there are some, I guess the larger ones that could be mean or whatever. Uh in summing things up, Lalo, what do you think they want from you? And what is it? Why do they keep track of you all the time?
I think they keep track of me. I think I'm somehow a part of them. I'm
Mhm,
sure. Well, I know I have an implant, but I think that they test things on me throughout my life
mhm.
somehow. And I guess I've learned from Bob that there's another implant he picked up with his one of his machines
Trifield meter.
here.
Yeah.
He thinks one takes in information and one gives out information
The one that's in her forward beacons in like a transmitter
to them.
to them. It's actually transmitting radio frequency transmission coming from her forward. And I assure you, other than thermal black body radiation, we don't put out transmitted stuff. And it's a bursting transmitter.
Right.
And when she gets a headache, and I know it's active, so I go over and read it, and it's pulsing in RF.
What, I mean, my tri-field meter, is this a low frequency, Dr. Bob, that you're picking?
No, I think it's pretty high, for in the hundreds of megahertz to a gigahertz.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I usually pick up magnetism, magnetic energy. Rarely do I ever pick up frequencies.
Oh yeah, when
the
little cat balls go off, we have a K2 meter or the tri-field meter, and the K2 meter will flash over, and then we bring out the ghost skeleton camera, and we can see them in the corner of the room. Yeah, the electromagnetic stuff is there, but when her head goes off and it's hurting, she is beaconing a transmitted signal someplace.
Yeah, when my head doesn't hurt, it doesn't give those numbers at all.
Right. I know I got a implant right here in my thumb webbing. I got x-rays showing that.
Oh,
I just had one taken 2 or 3 months ago. The doctor doesn't want to address it. I tell him that sometimes it hurts me when I grab a doorknob or something, but he doesn't want to address it. He wants to put me through hand therapy. I said, well, you don't put somebody through hand therapy with an object that's hindering their thumb motion, Right. So I'm trying to talk to this doctor. Hey, listen up. Maybe he probably read my UFO book and he probably says this guy's crazy. But I met another guy too. He's a host, Vic Furman. He's got an implant in the exact same very place in this right there, and he showed me the X-ray, and I said, "Wow, we are brothers." So, I guess we're moving up to closing. Is there something you guys, both of you, can tell us about how you feel about this and which way are we going in disclosure, and what is the intent of all this action around your house to both of you?
I think that they're trying to feed us enough information that we can tell the public gently and safely, so that they aren't scared. Whoever these are, they're kind.
Yes.
And one of the messages that, let's call it Arcturian just for conversation. One of the messages the Arcturians gave her was that my job was to understand the relationship of all these different things and how all this is a part of consciousness, and how I'm supposed to figure out how at least the initial stages of the connection between consciousness and physics. And I've already made progress through quantum information entropy and thermodynamic entropy. So through entropy is the connection of consciousness and physics. And I've got some development to do. And literally, they said, you're going to do it. You're going to do it for the rest of your life. You won't get there, but you will have started it. And after you're gone, it'll be finished and you will be given great credit.
Wow. The two of you are enlightening people, and that's what I want to do. And I was talking to Lala earlier that sometimes this grind, it's a slow grind when you're doing these shows and you're talking to people. Half of them don't believe, the other half might believe to a certain extent. They starting to believe now in UFOs or UAPs because of the federal government. And the talking heads, a lot of times, I must say, I know a few of them really well, but they're trying to take the credit away from us average people. Now, Dr. Bob's a scientist. He's got more credibility when he tells his stories, but the average Joe, like me, I'm a journalist, or other people, actually, I've heard these people say, like George Knapp, they would say, well, now we got jet pilots, commercial pilots, we got police, and we got military that are coming forward and being witnesses. They're more credible and not like the crazies on the street,
Yeah,
That-
yeah. George was insulting to her.
Really?
He insulted her.
Yeah.
Just these people. The thing behind your head is what they want. They want to know how those craft work and how to go off world.
Right.
So what I think is, what I believe we are going to find through the work of, me making a little contribution, Dean Radin making a big contribution, Donald Hoffman making a big contribution, et cetera. We're going to find that we don't need that thing behind your head. We can travel with our consciousness astrally to wherever we want to go.
Yeah. We're more powerful than what we think.
We have no idea how powerful we are.
Yeah.
And so we started taking remote viewing from one of Ingo Swann's students, Simeon Hine. And so we're going to just keep exploring consciousness, keep gathering physical and video and other instrumentality data, and just keep records of it, and probably write it down and maybe put it in a book.
Yeah. Well, I just don't like the way the talking heads are discrediting the plain Joe on the street or the experiencer. We have stories, and I've had witnesses to half of my experiences, and I know you two are witnesses to each other's what's going on. I think that I was in the military, actually in top secret for a little while. I was never trained to identify a UAP or UFO. I knew the difference in aircraft. Like in Vietnam, I knew their aircraft. Of course, they didn't fly aircraft because they'd be shot down real quick. So they didn't fight us with their aircraft. But I could identify their aircraft, and I identified our own. But that's as far as we went. We're not. Even commercial pilots. Are they really, like George Knapp and the rest of them say? Are they really the experts they can depend on now? I don't think anybody's really an expert. I had a local Telegraph paper that called me an expert. And then one guy, kind of made a nasty remark about it. I said, I didn't call myself an expert. I said the journalist who took the story, who had me write, an article on it, they called me the expert. I didn't call myself an expert. None of us are really experts. We're investigating.
Exactly. We're doing observational science.
Right.
We're gathering data, hoping that we get enough data, enough input, enough experience that somebody will recognize a pattern. And they will have, and from all these experiences, they will write down a theory. And once we have a theory, we can make predictions that we can test with experiment. If the experiment succeeds, the theory has some utility.
And by the way, aliens usually go to small villages,
right,
or children, or average everyday people, and they prefer doing that.
Right. They do. And that's why I can't understand these talking heads saying that the average person on the street can't be believable as all these other experts, these aircraft pilots and everything. But have you heard the story about a village in Central America? I don't think Nicaragua somewhere, or Guatemala, that was attacked by aliens.
Yes, that's in Brazil.
No.
It's whatever it is in Brazil.
Okay.
They got attacked.
Okay. Do you know anything about that, Dr. Bob?
I know that if you want to keep up with it, go watch James Fox and all his videos, because he spent a ton of money and a ton of time down there gathering evidence, and he knows there exists a video, and he won't give up until he gets it.
Wow.
Where the local people took a video and pictures of this being. So when the military came and grabbed the being, everyone who touched it died.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. The James Fox's latest video, which you can look at on Prime and other things, is about these experiences he had visiting in Peru.
It had red eyes, didn't it?
Peru, yes.
Yeah.
It was in Peru. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Brazil. It was definitely Brazil.
Now the military, you said, captured it. How could
they captured it, and everyone they had to grab it and put it in captivity died from touching it.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to do some other way without touching it, I guess.
Yeah, they put on all sorts of garb and then they touched it.
Right.
But it died. It didn't last.
Okay. All right.
So they say.
Yeah.
We
So
don't
they
know.
say, yeah. Yeah. All in closing, you guys have anything to say, Dr. Bob, Lala? Anything?
Visit Lala's website,
Mhm.
lalabrightllc.com, and she can help you with spirit and aliens, etc.
Okay.
Right, I help people if they've been abducted, I can help with that through readings, and
Okay.
if they've lost someone, I can help them through readings.
Okay. Send me that site on Messenger or something, and
Okay.
I'll put it in the narrative when I post the video, in which I will do within the next day or two.
What I will do is send you all of our links. If you don't mind, just put them all up.
Okay.
There's
Sure.
a list
Sure.
of how to find our data, how to
Mhm.
find us.
Okay.
etc.
All right. Do that, and I'll post that in the narrative when I
Thank you.
do the posting. I want to thank you too, Dr. Bob McGuire and Lala Bright, and want to thank you very much for being on the show again. I'm always excited about having you guys on. Just like I like you too, and I've kept your folder actually, and usually when I keep folders, I say I'm going to go back and visit these people because there's always something happening. There's something, it's ongoing. So it's not just a one story off thing, and that type of thing. But you guys should have. Are you writing a book? Are you putting together a book?
Yeah, we have the idea for a book, and
Okay.
just let me be straightforward. Lots of people like us have books written about them, but they don't write the book. Somebody else writes a book, and they're in the book, but they don't get anything from the book.
Yeah, that's
So we
I don't-
are not doing that. We are
That's-
going to
yeah.
write the
Talking
book.
about earlier. Yeah.
that's the thing. Also, I told the guy that's supposed. He said he wanted to write a book about me, and he wanted to put other experiencers in it. I said, well, let's don't do like most talking heads. They take their stories and run with them, and they never get any credit, or they don't even get paid for it. If they do make, there's no money in UFO books really, but they don't get paid for it, and they don't get the credit for it. They just take their stories and run with it. But that's the Joe on the street that they're talking about, that they can't really validate. Well, bull BS on that. Okay, Dr. Bob McGuire and Lala Bright, thank you so much. This has been the Dave Emmons Show, Strange Reality, and hope you enjoy the show when you see it. And good night to everybody. Bye-bye.